So welcome everybody to Explore SDSU. Hopefully you've had a good experience visiting the other sessions. There's a lot that's being offered today. My name is Shira Scott. I'm one of the lead counselors in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. And with me, I have two of our managers. I have Sue Goulet, and I also have Carrie Hooker. And along with me too, I have Brandon Diaz, who's one of the lead counselors in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. So everybody is going to be muted during this session. And as I'm going through the presentation, feel free to ask questions in the chat box. Sue and Carrie will be answering your questions as the presentation is ongoing. Then after the presentation concludes, we'll take additional questions. So the presentation itself will only be about half an hour or so at the most, and then the rest will be questions and answers because we want you to get as much out of this as possible. And the goal is for you to learn more about financial aid at San Diego State and also to decide whether SDSU is the right fit for you financially. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, I'm not quite sure why it's not rotating to the next slide. There we go. All right, so if you haven't filed a financial aid application yet for the next academic year, for 2021-22 academic year, it's certainly not too late. You would either complete the FAFSA or you would complete the California DREAM Act application if you're an undocumented non-resident student who qualifies for AB 540. If you haven't filled out the FAFSA yet, or even if you have, the best thing to do while you're filling it out is to use the IRS data retrieval tool. That way, if you are selected for verification, the verification process is so much easier as far as there's not as much paperwork to turn in. So when you fill out the FAFSA, about 30 to 40% of the students are randomly selected for verification. And if you're selected for verification and you did not use the data retrieval tool, then there's tax return transcripts to turn in, a variety of documents. Whereas if you use the data retrieval tool, it makes it easier while you're filling out the FAFSA. And if you are selected for verification, the process is significantly simpler. So I encourage you, if you haven't filled out the FAFSA or DREAM Act application, definitely do that sooner rather than later. We have posted financial aid awards for next academic year as of a few days ago. So you should be able to see your eligibility when you log into your financial aid portal, AidLink. So you might be wondering how your financial aid award is determined. So each school that you list on the FAFSA receives an expected family contribution. We call that an EFC. The EFC is determined by looking at your income, your assets, the number of people in the household, number in college, and other factors. The EFC represents how much your family can afford to pay out of pocket towards school-related expenses. That number doesn't represent what you're actually going to be paying out of pocket. Each school will determine your award based on your EFC and the cost of attendance of that school in particular. Also, they'll look at the types of awards that are available, the funding that's available to that school. So what each school will do is look at their cost of attendance minus the EFC, and that equals your financial need. I just want to mention as well that at San Diego State University, since we're a state school and we're bound by rules from the federal government and rules of the state of California, the award is not negotiable. So whatever you see in AidLink as far as your award for next academic year, you can't negotiate a higher amount. It's a big difference in income from your situation is right now, then I would encourage you to contact us during the academic year or during the work week at our virtual front desk, and we'll advise you further. So I wanted to go through the cost of attendance for undergraduate California residents, and I have another slide for non-residents, so anybody coming from outside of California. So whether you're coming from in or outside of California, there's the basic tuition and fees that everybody pays. So that's $8,136 per academic year. And you see there's 3 columns for living with parents, living university housing, living off campus. Obviously, regardless of where you live, the basic tuition and fees are going to be identical. Same for books and supplies. We estimate how much it might cost you for books and supplies throughout the academic year. Also, as far as housing, if you're living with parents, obviously you're not paying that $9,000 to the university, but it's just an estimate of how much it would cost your parents to feed you for different expenses that relate to you living at home, but that's not a direct cost to the university. As far as living in university housing, we put an average of $19,330. That amount would determine by your living situation. So whether you're in a single room or a double room or a triple room, and it also depends on the meal plan that you select. So I encourage you to go to the housing website to see the costs associated with different types of housing options. As far as transportation, this is also just an estimate. It's not a direct cost to the university. So let's say you're living in university housing and you live in New York, for instance, you're going to have to fly to campus in the beginning of the academic year. You're probably going to want to go home for the holidays. You have to fly back at the end of the year. So we just put an estimate there as far as costs that you might want to account for throughout the year. Also, we add miscellaneous personal costs, and then there's a total for the academic year. So you'll see the totals listed below. The costs for non-residents, so people coming from outside of California, all the costs are identical except for there's a cost for out-of-state tuition. So as far as out-of-state tuition, there's a per unit fee that is charged, and it's on top of the basic tuition and fees. So each student coming from outside of California pays an additional $396 per unit. An average load for a student course load is about 15 units per semester. So we estimate that you'll take 15 units in the fall, 15 units in the spring, so 30 units for the academic year. And so that's how we come out with that figure, 11,880. Essentially, that's 30 units times $396. So the total cost of attendance for an undergraduate non-resident is about, it's about $40,000 a year, a little over. So now let's go into the types of financial aid that are offered at San Diego State University. So first we have the Pell Grant from the federal government, and that's based on your income and your financial need. So whether you're coming from, whether you're a California resident or you're coming from outside of California, you could qualify for the federal Pell Grant if you have financial need. Another grant is the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant that's offered at SDSU as well. So now let's go into state grants. So as far as the state grants, you have to be a California resident in order to qualify for these. So we have the Cal Grant A or Cal Grant B, and for that you would have had to fill out the FAFSA by March 2nd. We also have the State University Grant. In addition, we have the Educational Opportunity Program Grant and the Middle Class Scholarship. So all of these, the Cal Grant, the State University Grant, the Middle Class Scholarship, those are tuition paying sources. So that means you can't get, let's say, the Cal Grant and the State University Grant and the Middle Class Scholarship because they all cover the same thing. So it's typically one or the other that you would receive. You could, however, get a state grant and a federal grant to support your education. Again, if you're a California resident, you could get both. So next we'll go on to types of self-help aid. So the first type is federal work study, and that's essentially when you get a job on campus and you use your paycheck to help pay for university-related expenses. Not everybody qualifies for the federal work study program. You have to have financial need in order to qualify for federal work study. And essentially, it just opens up more opportunities on campus as far as jobs that you can apply for. If you don't qualify for federal work study, there's still plenty of jobs on campus. You would just go to the Career Services website and look up Handshake. That's the system where they store all the positions that are available on campus. So you could still apply for a job, just not under federal work study. The next is federal direct loans, and there's three primary types of loans. There's the subsidized loan, the unsubsidized loan, and the Parent Plus loan. So as far as the subsidized loan, only certain students qualify for it because it is based on financial need. So the subsidized loan is interest-free while the student is enrolled in at least 6 units. The interest doesn't start accruing until 6 months after graduation. And at that point, the current rate at least, it is 2.75% fixed. So the first payment that you would have to make towards this loan, again, is 6 months after you graduate. The second type of loan is an unsubsidized loan, and pretty much the great majority of our students qualify for that. There's no credit check required. The difference between the subsidized and unsubsidized loan is that interest does accrue while you're in school at a rate of 2.75 fixed. With this loan as well, you don't have to start making payments until 6 months after you graduate. And I do want to mention as well that the rates that I have listed here are for this academic year, for 2020-2021. Loan rates do reset every July. So after July, you'll know what the interest rate is for next academic year. The next type of loan is the Parent Plus loan. So this is if you as a parent want to help your student with educational related expenses. There is a credit check required in order to acquire this loan, in opposed to the student loans that do not require a credit check. The interest rate is higher than the student loans. It's 5.3%, and that's fixed. And typically the first payment comes within the first academic year. So in the spring semester is typically when you have to start making payments towards this loan. There is an option also to defer the payments until after the student graduates. However, in that situation, you're paying interest the whole time your student is in school. So in general, we recommend that the subsidized and unsubsidized loans be activated prior to the Parent Plus loan. So you activate those first, and if you still need additional money on top of that, then you activate the Parent Plus loan. The next type of loan is the alternative loan, and we don't necessarily promote this type of loan. This is, for example, if you go to a bank or a financial institution and ask for an educational type loan to help you with school-related expenses. The reason we don't necessarily recommend these type of loans is because you really do have to read the terms and conditions carefully, because you might see a rate that's lower than what these government loans offer you, but that rate might not be fixed. So they might be offering you a 1.99% interest rate, and you think to yourself, well, that's great. But if that rate is not fixed and it can go up, then that would not be a good situation. If a student chooses to get an alternative loan, they would typically need a cosigner, because those obviously are based on credit. I did want to mention as well that there are student loan borrowing limits, because every year we have questions from students in regards to, can I take out more than what's being offered to me? So I just thought I would include it as far as what the limits are for students. So for a first year freshman, for a first year student, it's $5,500. For their second year, it's $6,500. And for third year and beyond, it's $7,500. For a student that's considered independent by FAFSA standards, they're offered $4,000 more per academic year. I also want to mention that there are aggregate maximums as far as what a student can borrow while they're in school. And so for a dependent student, it's about $31,000 per year. And for an independent student, not per year, for the aggregate limit, the whole time that you're in school, the most that you can borrow is $31,000. And for an independent student, the most you can borrow for your undergraduate education is $57,500. Next, I want to talk about Aztec scholarships. And so Aztec scholarships just opened. We launched it March 15th, and the deadline to apply is July 30th. So within the system, it's pretty much you log into the system, you answer a series of questions, and then it auto matches you to scholarships that you're eligible to receive. That being said, we have about 700 scholarship opportunities within the system to support students. And a lot of our students do submit the scholarship application. So it's one application that gives you access to literally hundreds of scholarship opportunities within our system. Once you're admitted to the university and you complete your intent to enroll and activate your SDSU ID, that's when you can fill out the Aztec scholarship application. So if you haven't committed yet, if you're still deciding between different universities, you haven't submitted the intent to enroll yet, you can't apply yet. You can only apply after you submit the intent to enroll and after you activate your SDSU ID. And the SDSU ID is basically your SDSU email address that's created after you're admitted and commit to the university. So there's several different portals that you should be aware of. So there's the web portal, and that's how you found out that you've been admitted to the university through web portal as well. That's how you register for your classes, you drop courses, you apply for graduation. Anything academic related is through your web portal account. In addition to that, you have a CashNet account for paying your bills to the university. And also, if your financial aid exceeds what you owe the university, the refunds are processed through student account services, so through the CashNet system. Another portal is the housing portal, and that's only for students that are living on campus. They would have a housing portal to sign the contract and also to select roommates and so forth. Another portal that you have that I want to expand on is AidLink. That's your financial aid portal. So this is what the home screen looks like for AidLink. If you look on the left-hand side towards the top, you'll see important messages that we post for you. It's really important that you stay on top of things and that you read the messages and that you log into AidLink on a regular basis. In the center, there's also your to-do list. So for example, if you were selected for verification and we need documents from you, you would see that under your to-do list. On the right-hand side towards the top, you'll see your award, your financial aid eligibility. So if you click on that, you'll see details regarding what you're eligible to receive. And if you've been selected for verification, the hyperlink will not be active and you will not be able to see your award until you've cleared the verification process. If you were not selected for verification, you should be able to go in right now and see your financial aid award. The next category on the right-hand side is Aztec scholarships. So there's a hyperlink there that will allow you to log in to the Aztec scholarship application portal. Next, down below that is payments, postponements, and billing. So that will tell you if you have a fee postponement, if you can register without paying your fees up front. So an example of that is, for example, if you have grants that cover your tuition, then you would probably get a fee postponement. You wouldn't have to pay anything up front prior to registering. So again, that section will tell you whether you have a postponement or not. And then down on the bottom, on the right-hand side, you'll see release of authorization. So if the student wants his or her parent to communicate with us and for us to share detailed information regarding the financial aid award, the student has to release authorization to the parent. So you would release authorization by going into your web portal account. When you go into your web portal account, on the left-hand side, you'll see privacy settings. You click on privacy settings and then you add there which parent you're allowing to communicate with us about your financial aid. And keep in mind too, we'll check, for example, if you visit our virtual front desk, we will check which parent you have listed on the FAFSA. And we'll check which parent is authorized to speak with us before answering any questions. So financial aid tips, file the FAFSA DREAM Act application if you have not done so already. Again, it's not too late at this point at all to file the financial aid application. Also review the cost of attendance to make sure that SDSU is the right fit for you financially. As well, apply for scholarships as soon as you submit your intent to enroll and activate your SDSU ID, and also become familiar with your various SDSU portals. Lastly, I want to mention that we do have a student financial center. It's a virtual front desk that's open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Again, during this presentation, after we're done, we're going to answer your questions. But if you have more detailed questions that relate to your account or to your student's account, the best thing to do is to contact us during the work week. And then we can take a look at the student's file and answer your questions more thoroughly, whereas this session is meant for more general questions. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and we will go ahead and answer your questions. All right, so Brandon is going to read us some of the questions from the chat box.
All right, so the first question that I wanted to get answered live is, it says on my to-do list that I need to send documentation of U.S. citizenship. How do I send it?
So we pretty much want you to load all documents via the AidLink portal. We used to accept documents within our office in person and mail documents. You could still mail the document, but we prefer that everything is loaded via the AidLink portal. And for those who are my panelists, if you want to add anything at any point, feel free to add to what I'm saying. All right.
The next question that I have is, can you start paying back loans before you graduate?
Yes, definitely. And I would encourage you to do that. There's no prepayment penalty.
All right. The next question is the $400 intent to enroll fee non-refundable?
Yes, that is a non-refundable fee. But just to mention about the $400 intent to enroll fee, it goes towards your tuition and fees. So If you're not sure if you're coming to San Diego State, then don't pay the $400 because it's not going to be refunded to you. But if you are absolutely sure you're going to attend San Diego State University, then go ahead and submit the fee. And then in the fall, you'll have $400 less to pay towards your tuition and fees because it does get applied to that.
And then something similar to the last question that we had is, if you are eligible, can you postpone the $400 deposit for the intent to enroll?
So there is a postponement of the $400 intent to enroll fee if you qualify for grants, for instance. So if you qualify for the Pell Grant, or if you qualify for the state university grant or any state-based aid, then most likely you'll see in web portal, and you'll see an aid link that the $400 fee has been postponed.
All right. The next question would be, if SDSU is not listed as the first school on my FAFSA, how would I go about changing that? And is it too late to do so?
No, you could still go back into the FAFSA and put SDSU as your #1 school. Ultimately, if you do decide to go here and SDSU is not listed as your #1 school, that will cause problems as far as your Cal Grant, for example, being awarded at San Diego State. So once you do decide that SDSU is where you want to go to school, definitely list SDSU as your #1 school, or if you choose to go elsewhere, put that other school as your #1 school, wherever you ultimately choose to attend.
The next question is, are there payment plans? Sorry, they moved. Are there payment plans to pay for tuition in installments?
Yes, definitely. We know tuition, it's a lot for somebody to just pay the whole amount. So there are payment plans for the in-state tuition, and there's also payment plans for the out-of-state tuition as well. And so you can find information regarding the payment plans in the Student Account Services website, because the payment plans are through their office. So there is a way to divide the payments for tuition and fees. As far as housing, I want to mention, if you're living on campus, housing is automatically divided into payments throughout the year. And so your first payment for housing would be in August. So it'd be August, September, October, November. For the fall semester, that would be your 4 payments. And then for the spring semester, it would be January, February, March, and April.
Right, the next question would be, how do you attend virtual office hours, so the virtual front desk?
Yeah, so essentially we set up a whole virtual front desk where you can come anytime between Monday and Friday. And we actually coordinated with Student Account Services, because a lot of times you'll have financial aid questions and you'll have questions that relate to student account services. So when you log into the virtual front desk, the first question they're going to ask you is, do you want to speak with someone from financial aid, or do you want to talk to somebody from student account services? And based on your response, they'll put you in a breakout room with one counselor or the other. When you're done speaking with that one counselor, if you still have questions for the other office, then you could leave that room, go back with the greeter, and ask to be placed in another room. And so we started the virtual front desk a few months ago, and so far it's working out really well. So I encourage you to visit the virtual front desk during the work week if you do have any questions. And also, just to mention, the link to the virtual front desk is on our homepage. So all you have to do is just Google SDSU financial aid. And then if you scroll down on our homepage, you'll see the link to the virtual front desk right there.
Okay, the next question is, on AidLink, do I need to print out the summary and certification page in order to sign and submit it into the load documents area? Also, do I attach all of my other documents that I need to submit with the summary and certification page when I submit it?
Yes, so that's correct. So basically, you answer the variety of questions, you print out the document, you sign it, then you scan it, you upload it, save it on your desktop as a PDF document, because if you save it as anything else, it won't load via AidLink. So you're going to load that along with everything else that we're asking for. So typically that would be tax return transcripts and W-2s. So you would want to load everything. You would want your file to be complete straight off the bat, because otherwise our staff will have to incomplete the file and then ask you for additional documents. So it's just easier and faster if you read what's required as far as submitting right away and just submit everything, just so we don't have to follow up for documents and then the process can drag on for weeks if you don't submit everything that we're asking for.
So next one is, I did my taxes recently as an independent. However, I'm filing out my FAFSA right now and it is saying that I am a dependent student. Should I just continue filing this out as is?
Yeah, so filing your taxes as independent and what FAFSA considers as independent versus dependent is different. So as far as the FAFSA is concerned, first of all, they look at your age. If you're 24 or older, then they'll consider you an independent student. If you're not, then they'll consider you a dependent student. There's other factors as well. For example, if you're an orphan or ward of the court, then you may be considered independent. If you're active duty military, you may be considered independent. So when you're filling out the FAFSA, there's a variety of questions that are meant to determine whether you are independent or dependent by FAFSA standards. And if you're considered independent, then you just have to submit your own income information. If you're considered a dependent student, then you have to submit your parents' information on the FAFSA.
Okay, the next question is the FAFSA for 2021-2022 academic year based on the 2019 taxes?
Correct. Yeah, so it's the prior year.
Are there any ASTEC scholarships that international students are eligible for?
Let's see if Carrie's available. Carrie's the Assistant Director for Scholarships. Carrie, are you available? If not,
I am available, and yes, international students are eligible for all scholarships and Aztec scholarships, with the exception of those that require financial need.
Okay, thank you.
The next question will be, do I need my parents' consent to take out loans?
No, you do not. So basically, as far as the student loans, it's up to you whether you want to activate the loans or not. They're your loans, not your parents' loans.
All right, give me 1 second, looking for the next question. Is there an exact date and time for the financial aid decision to be announced?
So essentially, we have posted the financial aid awards for next academic year. So you should be able to log into your AidLink account and see what your financial aid award is. If you can't view your award, that might be because you were selected for verification. If you weren't selected for verification, you can't see your award, definitely log into the virtual front desk so we can look into it, because that should not be the case at this point.
All right, so the next question will be, I was able to review my financial aid. Is there a reason why living arrangements defaulted to living with parents? I was planning on living on campus, which would change my financial aid status.
So it defaults to living with your parents, being a commuter. If you live locally, typically that's what happens. As soon as you sign your contract with housing, then we get an extract, we get that in our system, and then we change you automatically to residence halls.
Is the amount indicated on the Parent Plus loan per year?
Yes, that's correct. So when you open AidLink, the award page, you'll see per semester, and then you'll see per academic year. You'll also see the net and gross amount that's offered.
You receive an SDSU ID after you submit your intent to enroll, correct?
Correct.
All right. If your financial situation has changed in 2020, how do we go about correcting that? Because won't our EFC be calculated differently?
So, correct. So we have a form that's called request for review. The request for review form is located in the forms section of the financial aid website. So if your financial situation has changed significantly in 2020, then you would want to file the request for review. There's a parent request for review, and then there's also a student request for review. So just to give you examples of why people fill out the request for review, it could be because of loss of job. It could be because one of the parents passed away. There's a variety of reasons why the income could have gone down significantly from 2019 to 2020. That being said, we also look at assets. So if you have, let's say, $500,000 in the bank, then even if you and your spouse lost your job, filling out a request for review probably wouldn't take you to the point where you're eligible for more than just loans. So again, if your income has gone down significantly and you have no assets, for instance, then that would be a good reason to file the request for review. And in past years, we did not put the form out until July. We're thinking this time around to put it out a little earlier, so it may be out in April. I would ask you not to fill out the one for this academic year. For next academic year, you can look at what the form looks like and what documentation we ask for, but don't file the request for review until it's time to file it for next academic year. And again, I'm anticipating that's going to be April timeframe, but if you look on the website, you'll see when that changes to the next form.
Next question is it guarantee that students will be given Aztec scholarships?
There's no guarantee, but I'll see if Carrie wants to add anything more to that.
Hi, I'll just chat in to say that no, there is no guarantee that a student would be awarded from Aztec scholarships, but we certainly encourage everyone to apply because we offer almost 700 scholarships valued at almost $4.5 million. So we have hundreds of scholarships that you're likely eligible for.
Another quick question for Carrie. What are thank you notes for SDSU scholarships?
So our scholarships that you apply to through Aztec Scholarships are there because of philanthropic dollars. We have generous donors who have donated to offer scholarships to students. So when you're awarded an Aztec scholarship, you need to submit a thank you note to that donor to thank them for their generous contribution.
And just to add to that, I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, there's 14 days that you have to write the thank you note, or
Thank
else
you, Sherry. Yes.
or else you'll lose the scholarship.
Yes, that is important to note. There is a 14-day turnaround from when you're offered a scholarship to when you have to submit the thank you note.
All right, the next question is, what happens if you receive scholarships that exceed the total package amount to attend? How does that affect financial aid?
Do you want to answer that as well, Carrie, or would you like me to answer it?
No, I can answer it. I was just typing an answer. So when students are awarded financial aid and then you receive a scholarship, we have to take the scholarship into consideration based on your budget and how much unmet need you have. So there are times when we have to adjust your aid to make room for the scholarship. And generally that would be a reduction of your loan eligibility. We always start there first. There are rare cases where sometimes a grant has to be canceled to make room, but those are very rare occurrences. It's usually if we do have to make room for a scholarship, we would adjust loans.
I have a question right here. Does everyone have an academic advisor? I think they're referring to a financial aid advisor to contact in case more questions come up later, or do we just have to attend the virtual office hours?
So no, students aren't assigned a financial aid counselor. We basically have counselors rotating through the virtual front desk. So whatever time you call, so we have a whole staff of counselors that works in the virtual front desk to address all your concerns. So again, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you can log in whenever you have time, and we'll address your questions.
Another question. Is having another sibling in college, not SDSU, and mentioned in the FAFSA, a part of evaluating, oh, it jumped. Basically, it was a part of evaluating my financial aid eligibility.
Yes, that's definitely a factor. Having 2 kids in college is expensive, no matter what school they're attending. So that's definitely taken into consideration when creating the financial aid award.
All right, the next question will be, if you apply for an ASTIC scholarship, will you get an email that the scholarship was granted, or do you have to regularly check your AidLink portal?
Carrie?
I will jump in there. You would receive an email to your SDSU email address. So it would not be through your AidLink account. It would be through your email address, and then you would log into Aztec Scholarships to accept the scholarship and write your thank you note within 14 calendar days. Once you're officially awarded the scholarship, after you've done your thank you note, is when it would be viewable in your AidLink account.
Yeah. And again, that's your SDSU ID email address. That's where it's going to go to.
All right, the next question is, can students activate their subsidized loan separately from their unsubsidized loan? Like if they only like to choose one over the other?
Yes, definitely. So when you log into AidLink in the award screen, you'll see them listed separately, and you'll see that we list the subsidized first because it's the better loan, and then the unsubsidized under that. So if both are offered to you, you first want to activate the subsidized amount if you need money to help you with your education. And if you still need money above and beyond that, then you can activate your unsubsidized loan. And I also want to mention that the amount that's offered to you, it's not like you have to activate the full amount. Let's say you just want a portion of your unsubsidized loan. You can just activate the portion that you want. So not the whole entire amount has to be activated if you don't want it. Also, just to be aware, when you do activate your loans, you're activating them for the academic year, whether it be a student loan or a parent loan. So keep that in mind, because in the past we've had students, let's say, for example, they want $2,000 in the fall semester. And so they'll activate $2,000 and then only $1,000 will get dispersed to them. And then they'll call us and ask, well, where's the other half? Well, the other half is coming right before the spring semester. So just be aware that, again, the loans are for the academic year and that we split them in 2. And also as far as disbursement, whether it be a loan or whether it be a grant, or for the great majority of the scholarships, they disperse about 10 days before the semester starts. And they disperse directly from our office to Student Account Services. When they get to Student Account Services, they use your financial aid to pay for your tuition and fees first. And if there's additional money above and beyond that, and you're living on campus, then they'll use that money to pay for campus-related expenses. If you're a commuter, you live at home, and your financial aid award exceeds how much you owe the university, then you definitely want to sign up for direct deposit, because you'll get that extra money back in your bank account. And you'll typically get that in your bank account right before school starts, or within the first week of school, typically.
All right, the next question is, do you need to reapply to scholarships every year?
Yes, you do.
Looking for the next question. Okay, so it says, if I live off campus, do I need to pay any housing or food?
Not to the university, no. So you would just pay rent wherever you're living. You would pay for your own food, all those expenses. Again, in the cost of attendance, we put the off-campus and commuter, like how much it costs as far as like food and housing, just to give you an idea of how much money you're spending during the academic year. But if you're a commuter or if you live off campus in an apartment, those amounts of money do not go to us. That's just something that you want to budget for when you're going to school.
This person says, I submitted my signed paper for the verification documents, yet it still says that it has to be submitted. Is this normal?
For that, you might want to call the virtual front desk just so they can look at your file individually to see if we've received what you've submitted.
Okay, next question is, how do we submit awarded scholarships or grants from external institutions?
All right, Carrie, would you like to answer that?
I didn't hear that. Can you please re-ask?
How do you submit basically external scholarships?
So what would happen is we would like the donor to please send the scholarship check to our office, to the address at our office with the cover letter, letting us know the criteria, what term the scholarship's to be loaded to. The check is to be made payable to San Diego State University. And then one of our financial aid counselors will load that scholarship check to your record for disbursement at the start of the fall term.
All right, so the next one is there a way to set up a financial aid meeting with my parents so that we can go over payment plans and loans?
So definitely, that's what we're there for during the work week at the virtual front desk. The Student Financial Center is meant for you to come in, and I would encourage you to come in with your parent. That way, everybody's on the same page. So many times we have just the parent calling us, and yes, they're authorized on the FAFSA, but it's a family commitment. And so I would encourage the student and the parent to visit the virtual front desk together and to both ask questions, because going through school, whether it be at San Diego State or any other university, it's not cheap. And so you want to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. You want to know exactly what financial aid is being offered to you. So I would encourage you to visit us at the virtual front desk just so we can help you out to make a decision whether SDSU is the right fit financially for you.
The next question is, if I am an AB 540 student and in my portal it says that my residency is undetermined, will that affect the financial aid package that I receive?
No, I mean, basically we need that to clear up. We need to know whether, we need to know your status essentially. And typically, at this point of the process, it's the admissions office that you would contact regarding residency. And once your residency is determined, if you're AB 540, for instance, then you would qualify for federal, or actually getting confused here, for state financial aid, but not federal financial aid. If you're a non-resident, you would qualify for money from the federal government, but not state grants. If you're a California resident, then you would qualify for federal and state. But if it has your status currently as undetermined, I would encourage you to get that cleared up as soon as possible, just so you know where you're at as far as financial aid eligibility and so forth.
I think this is a question many of our students had today, but basically, if you defer, if your payment for the $400 intent to enroll is deferred, and you accept the intent to enroll and you get your SDSU ID, are you still able to apply for Aztec scholarships?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so if you submit your intent and then you activate your SDSU ID, then yeah, of course you can apply for Aztec scholarships. And I guess, again, the deadline is July 30th to apply.
Correct. And an SDSU ID is required to apply for Aztec scholarships.
Correct.
So the next question is federal and state grant two separate applications?
No, basically you're filling out the FAFSA, and based on the FAFSA, we determine eligibility for state and federal financial aid.
How soon before registration for classes should we apply for the student loans?
So I would recommend in July, the beginning of July is when you should activate loans. And especially if you plan to live on campus and you know you need a certain amount of money, activate it again, beginning of July, because also something to consider is in the summer, you have the new student orientation. And if you need the loan money in order to pay the tuition and fees, then activate your loan in the beginning of July. And that way your fees will be deferred because we know the loans are going to kick in right before school starts. And so you'll be able to register for your classes during orientation, because typically, unless they changed anything, you can typically sign up for your fall classes during the summer orientation that you attend. And again, in order to sign up for your classes during orientation, you either have to pay your tuition and fees up front, or they have to be deferred, or you have to activate loans. So.
Are student loan payments deferred if you attend graduate school?
Yes, they are. So if you decide to go on for your master's or a doctorate program, then it's after you graduate from the last program. And just to mention as well, you have to be enrolled in at least 6 units in order to defer. So essentially, let's say if you took a leave of absence from school for a whole year, then you'd probably get a letter from your loan servicer saying, hey, you have to start paying back your loans. So just be aware of that.
Sure. Could you be able to revisit the Parent Plus loan? It seems like some parents are confused as to how they work.
Okay, so the Parent Plus loan, it is a loan from the federal government. The interest rate for this academic year is 5.3%, and that's a fixed interest rate. Parents do have to go through a credit check in order to get approved for the Parent Plus loan. As far as the amount that's offered to you, again, you don't have to activate the full amount. So let's say you're paying for tuition and fees, and you're paying the non-resident fees. And in addition to that, you're paying for housing. If you can pay a portion of that without the loans, that's great. So ultimately just activate as much as you need, just because, again, it's accruing interest. And just as a reminder too, typically your first payment, let's say you activate the loan this coming July, the first half of the loan will disperse right before the fall semester starts. The second half will disperse right before the spring semester starts. And then it's going to be about mid-spring semester where you're going to start making your first payment towards that loan. And there's no prepayment penalty. So if you want to pay it off early, you can, or if you want to defer the payments until after your student graduates, you can do that as well. But again, we typically don't promote that, because then you're accruing interest throughout the whole time your student is in school.
Sure. I don't know if you already answered this one, but it says that if I choose to live off campus, can I still purchase a meal plan?
I believe there is an option to do that. I would encourage you to go to the housing website and see what they have to offer as far as meal plans for students living off campus.
This question is, how do we go about applying for federal work-study jobs? Do we need to send the intent to enroll? Is it competitive? Or do I get it automatically if it shows I have financial need?
So, I mean, it could be part of your financial aid award right off the bat. If it's not part of your financial aid award and you don't see it, let's say right now, and you want to see whether you qualify for it, you can contact us at the virtual front desk and we'll let you know whether you qualify for it, and also we can add it to your financial aid award. We typically add $2,500 per semester as far as how much you can make each semester. And then typically jobs for next academic year, for a lot of the offices, they publicize them in August timeframe. So you might want to just see what's out there. Again, all the jobs, whether it be a work study job or a non-work study job, just a student assistant position, those are publicized via Handshake. That's the university's system through career services where all jobs are publicized. And also just to mention about federal work study, it is need-based. So if, for example, you see that you're qualified for subsidized loans, then most likely you are qualified for work study as well because you have financial need. But again, if you have questions about that, you can visit the front desk and we can let you know whether you qualify.
The next question is campus housing mandatory for freshmen if I have off-campus housing by the start of the semester?
My understanding is yes. Prior to the pandemic, students were required to live on campus their freshman year and their sophomore year if they were not local. There are certain rules regarding who has to live on campus and who does not. That being said, it's more of a housing question, so I would encourage you to reach out to housing to ask them if your student is mandated to live on campus or not.
It says, do I have to submit the intent to enroll to see my financial aid eligibility?
No, you don't have to submit your intent to enroll to view your financial aid eligibility. In fact, if you were not selected for verification, you should be able to go into AidLink right now and see your financial aid award. I mean, as much as possible, we want you to accept the admission offer at San Diego State with your eyes wide open. So we want you to know exactly what the tuition and fees are. We want you to know exactly what your financial aid award is. And that way you can make an educated decision whether SDSU is the right fit financially. The last thing we want to do is convince somebody to come here and then they can't afford it or they get into a huge amount of debt. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure, again, that you're accepting the offer with your eyes wide open and that you know everything. So ask as many questions as you can of SDSU and the other schools that you're considering. Ultimately, I think the deadline for the great majority of the schools is May 1st. So do your research now in order to make a choice.
Shira, I have a question for you. So I have several that are asking where they can find a recording of this meeting.
Okay, so yeah, we are recording this session. And by Monday afternoon, I'll post a copy of this recording on our website. So if you go to our homepage and scroll down, actually the link is through Coffee Hour, Coffee Hour, because we have a variety of coffee hours throughout the year. Like we just had a scholarship coffee hour. We're going to have other scholarship coffee hours. So those are sessions that we have for everybody to join, information sessions. So if you click on the coffee hour link, it will take you to a page with a variety of recordings. So we'll probably put it there, or also I can see if I can put it on the page. We have also a page on our website that has a variety of videos. So it will be available through our website, and most likely it would be on that coffee hour page. And then also, let me see what time it's getting to be. So it's exactly noon right now. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up. We really appreciate all of you joining our session today. And again, if some of your questions weren't answered, because I know there's a bunch of questions in the chat, and I know that Sue and Carrie had tried as quickly as possible to answer all your questions. But if you still do have any questions, again, I encourage you to visit our virtual front desk Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And again, the link to the virtual front desk is on our homepage. So just Google SDSU financial aid, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see a link